Crazy Ant Farm, man. How are you?
Doing great, and thank you so much for having me on.
Really thank you so much for coming on. We are so excited to talk to you. You have the distinction of being our first editor. We talk to a lot of different people in a lot of different genres in the industry, but you are the first editor, and so we are super pumped to talk to you because a lot of people who might not be too familiar with how the industry works, you can make or break a film or a television show.
So, we tend to be more responsible for breaking it.
Yeah. Boy.
It's always nice when people think like, oh my gosh, the editor did such a fantastic job. But it's like, with most departments on a movie, that's you're paid to show up and do it right.
Exactly.
Whether you're the actor, production designer. So all the opportunities are there to really hang yourself. So I'm glad when it all comes together. And certainly, the more times you get to do the job, the better you sort of get at refining that skill set. And it is a skill set. It's a problem-solving skill set. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, okay, so now we have to know. So was editing in the industry something that you had always seen yourself doing, or how did you fall into the industry? Was it something that you knew from the get-go you wanted to do?
No, it was. In fact, it was the exact opposite in a weird way. I'm a child of the 80s that grew up watching those sort of like, Raiders, Star Wars, Beverly Hills Cop type movies. But they weren't really anything that I ever thought that I could participate in. I'm from a place called Oklahoma, which is in the middle of nowhere. But they have a lot of sports down there. So for me, I was able to get into broadcast journalism. The big thing was when I even entertained the idea of working in film, there's no film labs in Oklahoma. So we couldn't process film dailies. There was no discussion about how film even worked. There was certainly photography, and I'm sure things have changed now. But I remember my first year of college when I took a film class, if you wanted to have your film processed, you had to send your film in with the football teams dailies, because football would record their stuff. This is again in the 80s. There's no video cameras that are sort of at a consumer level that are affordable, but film on high 8 or 8mm was something that you could shoot for game film. So high schools across the state, as well as the two large universities, needed to have their film processed. And so there was a place that you could then, if you were of the creative sort of set, you could throw your batch in there and hopefully it would come back without people running some wishbone option.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh, that was mine.
Right. That's amazing, dude. I love that story. Because now I think people are so now they have these little machines. You can run the film strip through the machine. It converts it to digital and you're just good to go, right? Like back in the day, hence the word dailies. I don't even think that a lot of people now in coming up in the younger generations even understand that you had to mail the film off, get the dailies, and have it come back to watch. Right now you just press, let's play back and see what it looks like,
There's a lot more immediate feedback, and the sort of price point of the capture medium, whether it's an iPhone, has gotten so cheap that you can have 4 cameras on set.
Absolutely.
Right? That didn't, so taking that step back, for me, if I wanted to see something immediately, you had to go into broadcast because at least we could record something on tape.
Right.
And a tape medium, you could rewind and you could start working with it immediately. And so I was like, oh, okay. I was somebody who wanted to sort of have that sort of immediate feedback. And so, I got into broadcast journalism just because we could shoot something on a camera and you could edit it that night. That didn't exist even at the highest level of Hollywood filmmaking. To shoot something and edit it on the same day was unheard of in the 80s and well through much of the 90s.
Right.
And so I learned how to do tape editing. The problem with tape editing, and I don't know if you guys had this experience, is that it's very linear versus film. So you had to go shot 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you wanted to change shot 2, it wasn't a simple process.
It was not.
Same way with film, you can pull a shot out in film, you can cut it and pull it out. And digital, you can cut it and pull it out. With tape, you had to find something that was the exact same length to cut over it.
That's right.
Where you started from the beginning. Let me tell you, you learn how to paper edit really quickly there. And it helped my mindset as far as okay, you better pre-visualize how, instead of just jumping in, you've got to pre-visualize in your mind how you want to edit something. And then the part two of that equation is I got into sports editing because sports was so ubiquitous. And you learn something very valuable there that they kind of teach you at film school, which is stage line. Don't jump the line. Don't jump the line. I didn't understand what that meant other than you in baseball or say boxing or even basketball, when you're editing something, I cut a reel one time where Shaq's scoring on the left side of the screen and then he's scoring on the right side of the screen, which is jumping the line. It's like, no. When the quarter change, you have to have the camera straight. Shaq was a rookie when I was in college working at a TV station. And so you would cut these highlight reels. And I thought I had done an amazing job editing. Look at this guy doing something. And I had the news director come down and say, you messed up. He lost the game.
Oh, shit.
Right.
You didn't tell the story.
That's
so now you're learning story and like stuff that you would learn, what story is. It's like, no, each night you would get a new story. Who won the game? It doesn't care who had the coolest shot. And so you would have to learn like, oh yeah, something that was less elegant or less cinematic because it didn't look as cool. That game-winning sort of free throw, that told the story better. And so those were the things that helped me. And so when I came to LA, the Lakers were not good. The Dodgers were non-existent. And someone said, hey, you actually have a skill set. Have you considered movies? And I was like, no. And so I got a job giving that tour at Universal Studios because I had no film school knowledge. I didn't know the classics. I didn't know any of this stuff. But I got a job just giving the tour at Universal. Over here is a shark that's going to jump up and scare you. That thing that we sort of saw in movies. I was fortunate enough to get that, and that gave me a little bit of film history.
Right.
And then there was this marvelous time of the video store. It doesn't exist anymore. When you can go into this video store and rent some of the coolest, most cutting edge, and everybody, the people in their 20s and 30s in Los Angeles were talking about these cool movies that you were not going to see in Oklahoma. You were not going to see in Arkansas. But here they're like, dude, have you seen this foreign film? It's like, no, where would I see that? Like, go to the video store. And today, like, that doesn't exist anymore. You got you got these streamers. Yeah. And if you know to hunt for it, maybe. But I was so fortunate to have all these resources that just Well,
it's funny that you bring that up because we've had Danny Strong on the show a few times, and he talks about he came up in the video stores. He literally met Quentin Tarantino at a video store that Quentin was working at, and they developed a relationship, and now they're two legends in the industry. But yeah, the video store was like a huge part of it back in the day, man.
It was a library.
Exactly.
That was run by the weirdest group of people. The guys who worked in there.
Oh yeah.
Were the Hollywood weirdos that knew the weirdest stuff. But man, the DNA that they passed on.
Oh for my goodness.
Right? And so it's like some cool stuff came out then, and I just happened to fall into that sort of pond of just primordial film goo.
Right.
There'd already been enough stuff built in the 50s all the way through the 80s.
Yeah.
And you can see what happened in that sort of, post 92 to 2000.
Right. Sure.
People were taking swings and getting seen for it.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah, well, dude, just your excitement about the industry really got me excited. Like, I'm so happy and excited to talk to you. But I feel like I haven't felt this feeling since we went to the Academy Museum out in Los Angeles, and I was feeling the same feeling. But your level of excitement and your level of knowledge, like, it got me ready to go because we are filmmakers ourselves. We use the podcast as a platform to connect with individuals like you and to help up and comers try to break into the entertainment industry. So that's kind of why we started the whole thing. But like, I just feel like, to be able to think about all of these different aspects when it comes to filmmaking, especially editing, because we edit the podcast. So to talk about like converting film to digital and how you would do it, especially film editing and tape editing and all that different stuff. That's so fascinating to me because right now, all I've ever known, as I'm sure you can tell, I am a young individual and I have only known like digital editing with Adobe Premiere. And but I am absolutely fascinated by all the knowledge you have, especially you went through that transition from film to digital. So what was that like in the sense what was everybody's reaction to it? Were they excited about this new endeavor or were they kind of like, reserved about it?
That's a very good question. And certainly I like to maintain that sort of positivity because it is a fun and right now even more exciting industry than when I started. But there was a moment when I first started working as a PA, and because at some point you gotta PA,
right? Sure, absolutely.
And I was in a cutting room, and I almost bailed on editing because of the film nature. It was dirty, it was heavy, like you would physically have to lift film. And It was like chemicals that was all over it, and I saw these books on digital. On essentially the manual. Yeah. Avid was trying to get people to embrace Avid. They would give you these manuals in the cutting rooms, and there was a lot of crossover where, okay, we're still cutting on film, but we're going to try to put these digital machines in there. But here was the deal. The Editors Guild at one point, and a lot of the editors, they wanted to split into two divisions. And one was going to be the film editors, which were the prestigious people, and then all the digital people were going to be this other arena.
Interesting.
And it was certainly a short-lived conversation.
Yeah.
But I think that happens all the time with technology, and we're seeing it right now, quite frankly, with AI.
Yeah.
People are very scared about how this is going to impact jobs.
Absolutely.
Certainly with ChatGPT and things like that, where how is this going to impact us anytime a new machinery comes in that can sort of make things more efficient at the workplace? That can certainly be spooky to people. And it's something that has not gone away. So it was not readily embraced by the people who were, hey, I've spent a lot of time and I've invested a lot of time learning this technique of film editing and this purity of film editing. But ultimately, other than a few select individuals who really get that opportunity to continue working in film mediums, it was not a wise thing to ignore digital. And in fact, once people saw editing can be done digital, guess what? The cameras went digital.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And let me tell you, there was even more resistance to that. Like these are called films for a reason.
Right.
We have to shoot them on film.
That's right.
That's not when it's only getting better and better and better looking, these cameras. And we're still using the same RA lenses and the same sort of scope features. But now you really have to say digital is so important to the process. And so I was fortunate. I said, listen, I'm not going to be a Luddite about this. I really was like, I better go get on set.
Right.
I'll carry cables. If I'm going to have to carry heavy film canisters. They were the worst designed. I don't know if you've ever carried a film canisters. They would cut into your hand.
They sure would. Yeah. It's
like, this is miserable. and this is absurd to think about. Sound was on a different medium.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
If you said, hey, you want to go back to this other way of doing something where we're going to have the sound over here and it's going to travel on a separate and it could potentially get out of sync as you're editing, forget it. No way. I mean, so no, I think it's very easy. So I can't encourage anyone to ever go back and try to learn these old techniques.
Right.
It's not like keep moving forward.
Yeah.
If anything, honestly, if there's anything, if you're like, dude, what's cutting edge? What's next? It's Unreal. It's Unity. Those engines, even though that they're predominantly video game stuff.
Yeah.
Do not dismiss virtual filmmaking. If you get a chance, I mean, Nerf is coming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Earth is, and people are gonna be like, no. It's like, stop it.
Just wait. Just wait.
Yeah.
When Netflix released that Black Mirror episode where you got to decide, what you were doing, I was like, if you add VR to this, I just feel like it's going to bring a whole new level to entertainment and being able to pick your ending, whatever you want to do, and to actually be inside that universe. I kind of liken it to Ready Player One. Like, it would literally turn into like a Ready Player One situation.
It's the potential's there.
Oh yeah.
What we realized from that Bandersnatch, I think it was the Black Mirror.
Yeah.
When people click on their remote, they really, because it's not like they've made 20 of those cents.
It's true.
Right.
The choose your own adventure thing. People are like, you know what, dude, this is very passive. We want passive entertainment. That said, Blumhouse has a division that's VR. It's very small, but like VR is going to give you that passive experience that still lets you open the left door or the right door.
Right.
So you're right. I think we're in that place now where we just got to uncover what it's going to be.
That's right.
And so that's where you guys come into play. You're like, all right, well, we've seen that, like, do you want to go left or do you want to go right? Holding a remote.
Oh yeah.
Just for whatever reason, people aren't down with that yet.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk because you are one of the individuals who has had the luxury of going from the old school way of thinking in the film and converting and going into the new way and are on board with it. But I want to go back to one thing that you said when you were first learning, because I think it's so important that sometimes I feel like is being left behind now, and that's story. Right? As an editor, story in films and television is critical, right? And if you're not telling the story, you're failing. And we kind of joked about this before we started the interview about how people in your position, you can make or break a project like that. It can be the best acting and the best writing in the world, but an editor can tear that up, or vice versa. An editor can make a horrible script and not so great acting look really good depending on how they put together the story. So talk to me about that and the importance of the storytelling aspect of film and television, because sometimes I feel like everybody's like the green screen and the blow-ups and the action and all, but you got to tell a story in between there somewhere, right?
Well, you're absolutely correct that these narratives are important, and people are searching for these narratives.
Yeah.
Whether they come from superhero mythology or even a narrative that's a scary film that you just want to go out on date night.
Right.
So here's the thing to always sort of be mindful of. If you're a bad storyteller as an editor, it costs nothing for the production company to replace you. They're like, we've given 8 weeks to this person. They're not nailing it. We can bring in somebody else. As opposed to, say, a DP who, 8 weeks later and half of this stuff's out of focus. That's a that's a different animal.
Yeah.
So an editor, you better have a sense of how to respect the director's sort of vision on the story. The director is the lead on the story. And I say this sometimes I'm a tourist. Sometimes I'm a guide, and I have to just sort of recognize the room. Sometimes I'm just here for the journey. You tell me what you want, and I'm going to help get you there. And it may be just as simple as changing the music to create that mood. So there's that part of it, in the storytelling. But then there's this secondary part, which is sometimes the editors, and I don't mean to be dismissive of the profession, but sometimes editors will say, we get the last rewrite. And that's nonsense. The writer is the writer. Take pride in the job you have and don't try to take the shine off of anyone else's job. Right. It's like, I'm here to not do the last rewrite. I'm here to sit there and make sure that that the story that was written, that I'm delivering it the way you intended or the way that we could. Some things may not work because guess what? It rained that day. And that scene just has to be deleted because it was raining. And we got to find a way out of this hole.
Right.
So M3GAN is an example, because that's a film that we're all sort of familiar with, where we had 3/4 of the movie complete, done, edited. We had the whole movie done. But The last quarter, we had it done with post-viz and storyboards and stuff like that. We were going to have to do a pretty big VFX commit.
Right.
And so what Blumhouse does, and they're very, very smart about this, is they are rigorous about bringing in outsiders who are both familiar with the industry and not familiar with the industry to watch it and give feedback to make sure. So before we did this big money spend on the VFX for the ending, and we all liked it. We felt like, yeah, internally, this is what the script is. We've got it. The post-viz looks good. But let's show 3/4 of the movie and then stop for a test audience of who hadn't read the script. We took it to a real movie theater and we showed 3/4 of the movie. And we said, all right, how do you guys think it'll end? The audience, first of all, was like, we love it up to this point. We want to see how it ends. Why are you doing this to us? This is a really bad thing to do to us.
Right.
Tonight. But we're like, hey, the popcorn and the pizza is free. So, you kind of know the deal. So the audience told us pretty clearly how they thought the movie should end. We asked them, how do you think it should end? Just see what are we leading? And the audience was pretty clear that they wanted a very specific ending that was close, but it was not our ending. It was clear that our ending was not the one that they wanted.
Yeah.
So, and which at that point, we knew that we had the contingency and we had the money for the VFX. Let's use that money to give them the ending that they wanted.
Nice.
So that's the storytelling. Whereas no matter how I was going to edit it, if the audience is really saying that you've done all this, essentially laying the breadcrumbs for this journey of a story, we would be most fulfilled with this. And and so we don't even have that. There's no unrated version that has this other ending, but essentially the other ending, the original ending, was that Allison Williams was going to be the hero of the movie who kills M3GAN.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Right? And which on every executive, filmmaking, Hollywood making, let the bigger movie star of this movie be the one who has the heroic, I know that I did wrong. And certainly the DNA of Frankenstein is that Dr. Frankenstein wants to kill his creation.
Right,
so it just made sense. The audience was like, no, Katie is the little girl in this story is the one who has to be the hero at the end. And they told us that we think that Katie should be the hero, they, not knowing what anything was. And so we're like, all right, that's an easy adjustment. Mm-hmm. We can make that adjustment pretty easy, keep everything else the same, but shoot a little bit extra or shoot a little different. And so that's an example of storytelling as an editor where you have to be ready to pivot and help the team when that comes down, when you get that note.
Well, I absolutely love that, though, because I feel like, within the industry, sometimes you get tunnel visioned a little bit, not intentionally, but you just do. So this idea that there are people out there, and I think it's a brilliant idea, to bring outside eyes in and say, okay, we see it here, but what do you see? What's going on? That is fantastic. I wish that we would hear more people doing that, because I think that's definitely the way to advance a little bit further with the storytelling, is to say, okay, we all see it here, but let's see what's out here and how they see it, because I think that's so critically important. I love that you shared that.
Well, it's a dangerous sort of thing, because certainly a director has spent 3 years developing and
for
prepping,
sure,
right?
For sure.
And they feel very strongly that this is the ending. And fortunately, Gerard Johnstone, as our director, was open. He was like, listen, I'm no dummy. If people are telling me that this is what they want to feel satisfied, who am I to sit there and really try to throw down the gauntlet and say, no, this is whereas sometimes, a director does have to have conviction that, no, the audience thinks they want that, but we have to stick to our guns.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, dude, we don't have the budget to make that pivot.
Right.
Blumhouse is very, very smart, and it's better than going to not to say that it's better than going to film school, but it is like going to grad school in the sense of they are academic about their process. Mm-hmm. And so it was really great that Blumhouse is like, listen, they did not force this change. They just told Gerard, what do you want to do? It was more like, or they asked, what do you want to do? You now have this information. financially, we're good. We know that the movie works up to this point. We're going to be good. Do you want to be great? And Gerard's like, I want to be great. You're going to give me a chance to achieve greatness? Then yeah, I would love to, any director is like, after 3 years, I want to be done with this.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to go on to I'm tired of looking at this. But Gerard's like, I will give another 6 months to make this the better version. And so, teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right.
It really does. Because, I mean, we all we all have different opinions. We all think different ways. So to be able to put that out into the universe and to, try to put the pieces together and see what works best. And I'm so curious, too, because working on bigger budget films, because we talk to a lot of people who work on a lot of indie stuff, trying to make it happen. But at what phase are you brought in? Are you brought in at pre-production and then are able to see some stuff on set, or how does that go about?
So every game is different.
Yeah.
You start differently. The normal process is my next project is going to be a Blumhouse movie. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go back because I had so much fun with them. In fact, in the middle of when this whole sort of conceptualizing this new ending occurred, we had to sort of bring M3GAN, just close the window on it. Right. And Blumhouse was like, "You're not going anywhere, Jeff. We got another film for you."
Yeah.
And so I went and jumped onto that really quickly, which was a blast as well, and then came back to M3GAN.
Okay, cool.
But I have a film now that they're doing here. They gave me a few scripts, and they have one coming up that's actually really good. And so right now the director is about 5 weeks out from shooting, and about 8 weeks ago, or I guess, maybe 4 weeks ago, he and I sat down and talked. We had a good meeting. And so I'm just like, send me any storyboards. I'll start putting them together for you, if I can. Send me any test footage. He's out shooting some test footage on an iPhone just to see if this is going to work. And I'm like, just send it to me. Dropbox it to me. It's, it's not your actors. It's not this, that, or the other. And so in that example, the sooner I can start hearing what he's talking about or listening to her sort of say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, then I know that I can do that instead of trying to guess.
Right. The more information, the better, right?
Yeah. M3GAN was tricky, though, because there was a little thing called COVID. And it rocked the industry. Mm-hmm. And one of the safest places on Earth to shoot a movie was the island of New Zealand. So Gerard's from New Zealand. Everything for M3GAN was shot in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
And so, but you had to go in there, land on a military base, and stay quarantined for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then they could shoot. Right. And you had to have, the full vaccine, everything. New Zealand had some very strict rules. Blumhouse called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go over there?" And as soon as I was basically on the way to the airport, New Zealand shut down, said no one else is coming in.
Shit.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't meet Gerard for 8 months.
Oh, wow.
We had to edit. For 8 months, he and I were editing across Zoom.
Wow.
Because this is how wild it is. New Zealand is a time zone that's 2 hours difference.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it's tomorrow.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of these crazy things. So he had to trust that this guy that he didn't even know was working remotely in the States. But pretty quickly, we got along swell. We part of the, when I say you got to be the tourist and sometimes you got to be the guide, it's about just like, I'm here to just inspire confidence in the thing that you shot. You shot something here. It may never be in the movie, but let's just watch this fun moment in the dailies over and over again.
Oh my gosh,
you did that. And I want you to be happy with it.
Yeah,
and if you find a way to put it in the movie, do that. But that is the role. And that wasn't always in my mind when I was younger.
Right.
When I was younger, when you're first starting out, you're like, I just want to do a great job. And I want every one of these movies I do to be the greatest one ever. And here's how I see it when I read it. And so, wrong. Wrong. Because you have got to sit there and be like, hey, this person is the director.
Right.
Hear what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And make them happy and have fun along the way. And sometimes they're just looking for you to show them something different.
Right.
Exactly, that different perspective. And very curious too, because we're, like I said in the beginning, we are a film and television company, so we, like to dive into the technicalities of it. So, what computer do you use? What software do you use? I'm so curious because like the rendering times and the exporting times, it's absolutely insane. Because I can only imagine what it's like to actually do it for a film, a feature length. So I'm so curious.
Well, listen, I'm a big Adobe After Effects guy.
Okay.
So I'll do After Effects left, right, and center. But if you're going to do a feature film, I just Avid's it.
Yeah.
And it's Avid Media Composer because there are a couple key little things in there, particularly when it comes to trimming and when it comes to handling multiple versions.
Okay.
Right.
Versioning is just miserable for me in Premiere. But
Yeah.
that said, some people just I love Premiere.
Yeah.
And I get the attraction, so I'll jump in. If a director wants to do something sequentially in Premiere, I'll do it. It certainly it has some great features as far as like handling proxies.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to do a movie, it's Avid.
Yeah.
It's just it.
Yeah.
And you know what, quite frankly, and it's Avid Media Composer. I got to be honest, like I don't even think that they're I just had to use one of their sort of Avid Ultimate recently, their cloud-based version. I was just like, guys, come on.
Like, what are we doing?
Love it. I love it.
What are we doing here? Because it's like, but that's not to beat them up. It's just maybe I'm just that old guy who doesn't much,
Yeah.
But I don't think so, because let me tell you, I'll jump into Unreal.
Yeah,
For sure.
I'll jump into After Effects. I consider myself stronger in After Effects than I am in Avid.
Yeah.
Frankly, I made my bones in this sort of VFX main title design world. So
Nice.
I don't have any problem with that. It's Avid, and then certainly a film like M3GAN, it's not. You just make sure the dialogue's clear.
Yeah.
When people hear the dialogue. The trick with a film like that, you know what? You have to do an inverse filmmaking style. What people don't think about, I certainly didn't think about this, is we had to, before you ever shot the movie, every line that M3GAN says, anytime she says anything, you have to have an artist on the stage recording all her audio first. So before we even cast the movie, Gerard had already recorded these sound files so that the puppeteers can have they're playing it back on set.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's how that works.
Yeah. That's wow.
So you're kind of, in a weird way, you do the sort of reverse in principle on that.
Yeah.
But there were three things to that. There's a puppet, which requires puppeteers,
right.
2 or 3 people operating this wild device.
Yeah.
That on occasion is just mounted on a skateboard that you're sliding around.
Oh, shit.
Then you have a young actor who's wearing a M3GAN mask that on the very first day of filming, the kid's about to pass out because it's all latex. So they had to just cut these giant holes in there and a giant mouth. It became Leatherface.
Yeah.
And then, you had to do a VFX like, okay, well, we're going to have to pivot. But the young woman's so great as an actor.
Yeah.
Her physicality, she had a dance and a martial arts background.
Yeah.
So she was able to get the robotic movements. And she was able to do the flips. She was able to do these stunts that eliminated the need for VFX. But then occasionally you would need a fully CG 3D model of M3GAN.
Yeah.
And you're working with all those elements in the cutting room. But it's still Avid.
Yeah. So I got to know, do you have, because you've worked on just all kinds of projects, all different types of stories and genres of movies. So do you have a favorite? Is there one that you like jump at if any given opportunity? You're like, oh, this is the type I like to deal with?
It sounds silly. I've never really done a big comedy. And I think there's a reason. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I don't ever want to cross myself off the list of something. But when you see how these comedies work, where there's so much improv and so much take 2 and take 3 that's a skill set. I've seen these guys where it doesn't work because you get John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell doing a scene.
Right.
And then Andy Samberg walks through and it's going to be improv and it's going to be funny. How do you know what's the funniest business?
Right.
So I don't, it could read really funny, but I don't know that I'm that person. So that cuts me out of that loop.
Yeah.
Let's say, maybe I will do a comedy in the next year.
For sure.
Yeah, man, everything's up in the air. And I'm also very curious, too. You don't have to name the name, but what was the hardest film to edit, and what was the reason?
Here's the thing. When you the hardest thing is when people have lost spirit.
Yeah.
And sometimes that hits set.
Yeah.
For some time, sometimes maybe someone in the weirdest way in their life are going through trying to improve themselves, or they're going through a divorce, or they're going through a loss.
Right.
And that could be there are so many things that can make a movie go off the rails. It just takes one little thing.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing is pulling that back because guess what? After they've wrapped, everyone else is gone, and it's just you and the director looking at each other, and we've got the next 20 weeks of our lives trying to make this where it's, God, is this going to work? So those are the challenges. Because someone can be going through loss and
for sure
going through divorce and still be a professional and deliver, and sometimes that helps them. I know of plenty of instances where there are actors who had a rough break, and the work is what sort of gave them their sanity, and it really helped the performance.
Right.
So it's when somebody loses their spirit, whether it's the director, whether it's the production designer, someone losing spirit is the hardest thing.
That's a good
I've been
answer.
fortunate. I've been fortunate that it's worked out, most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time it works out.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I love just your energy, your passion for the craft, everything that you've done, and just everything about. I mean, I'm excited. Like you.
No, yeah, for sure.
This conversation has made me like very excited and ready to go out and go shoot something.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
I'm just like I can't.
That's the trick, is to keep that energy alive.
Yeah,
and it's hard because there's a moment where it's usually around 3 p.m. for me where it starts to peter off.
Yeah.
But I've been very fortunate. Like, I have great assistants that work with me. Many of them have gone on to have great careers, enviable careers as editors. But on this last film that I did, M3GAN, in Blumhouse, when I say that they have this ecosystem that's very sort of academic, where they're teaching you as you're working.
Yeah.
So the PAs on this show, we had 2 young women, Laura and Andrea. Well, I'm moving, Andrea's now coming on to this next movie as my assistant editor. Because assistant editor on M3GAN, we got him an additional editing credit. He's like, I want to go out into the world and edit. I want my own movie. I'm like, great. Go get your thing. And so we're able to move up, Andrea, and Laura gets to then move up to the apprentice editor spot. And they're going to get to, and so that enthusiasm is for, like, I want to see if somebody else succeeds.
Yes.
That doesn't dull my shine.
No, not at all.
Somebody else succeeding.
That's right.
How does that at all negatively impact me? So it's like, yes, have your success.
Yeah.
Please, because I want more people to go to theaters and see more movies and have this thing where they're so sometimes it wasn't always the case when I came to. There was a very competitive spirit. I'm like, oh man, for my movie to succeed, you have to fail, and you can't have your first break until I've had my third.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no.
It does, but do not dull other people, because it's not even cosmic. It's just common sense.
That's right. Man, I got to tell you, this interview is invaluable for anybody thinking about trying to get into the industry, or how do I do it? What's the right way and wrong way to do it? Because you two are definitely the right way to do it. You have a passion. You have a thrill for it. You do not have an ego that steps on anybody's way, including your own way. You want other people to succeed. Everything you've said tonight is absolutely right. It's the way we think. We think it's the way everybody should think. And I think that's a reason that you've been so successful with where you've come from and what you've done. And while I think you're going to continue to succeed massively because of that, you're an absolute gem, man. And I wish that there were more people like you, truly, because I think
it was a journey, though.
Well,
Yeah,
it always
didn't
is.
start-
That's right.
I wasn't 26-year-old
No.
with this very sort of Alan Watts Zen attitude.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
You know, when you're 26, it's like, holy shit, you're trying to really figure it all out.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And you don't know. But it's only after seeing like what works, and everyone thinks either you got to be the hammer or the nail, and it's like, dude, no, be the paintbrush.
There,
Like,
there you go. There you go.
be there. So that's the world I want to live in now, and it's helped, and it's come across in the past. I would say in the past 8 years, when you know what it was. Truly, there's a moment, and it happens with all creative people, where you turn from like, I don't know if I'm any good at this, to like, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
And it takes about that, 10,000 hours of like really doing it and being like, yeah, I can kind of do this. I mean, I do it the best, but what knowing what your weaknesses are, I'll tell you, man, like I'm not the best at music. I
Right.
enjoy working with music. We all think, but it's like, if you have an idea for music, an example certainly is in M3GAN. When I first got M3GAN, the music I was using was stuff that you would think from Ex Machina and I thought digitally sounding.
Right.
And so Gerard's like, no, we're doing 90s old school Chris Young with strings and
Hell yeah.
orchestral. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? But that's what we ended up with.
Sure.
The audiences loved even the studio's like, are you sure about that? I was like, let's test it. That's not the audiences loved hearing that old school throwback sound.
Oh yeah.
Horror strings that weren't synthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so great. It's easy for me to want to do that. So also knowing where your deficit is.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's great
Yeah,
advice.
I need help. Tell me, what do you think? What's the music? Guess what? We got Spotify. The director, a good director is going to be like, here, I'm going to build you a list on Spotify.
There- It's fantastic.
And here, you got a playlist, and you're working off that, and you're listening. You're like, all right, I'm feeling you now.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So,
That
but
is-
no, I don't want it to ever appear that like I came into this world, barefoot and woo woo. No, man, it only comes from sometimes being like, you know what, that wasn't a successful operation because of the mentality that you brought to it.
Right,
So,
right.
I feel comfortable. Like, yeah, I know what movies I like. The ones that you ask what I want to work on, is like cars that go fast is always fun.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Like those movies seem to be just like, oh yeah, certainly things that involve found money or those are interesting. We're always sort of drawn to those. I'm getting less and less interested in having too many people get shot in a film.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
Yep.
all right, that's just, it on some levels just such an easy trope. But early on, yeah, like I did an underworld movie where Kate Beckinsale's blowing the snot out of everybody.
Yeah.
Vampires, werewolves, everything. And it was the blast. It was in 3D. It was when 3D had its moment.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The, I don't know, 10th time around. I guess we're at our 12th time around on 3D. Maybe
That's
it'll
right.
take this time.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for coming on the show and just getting a little
Anytime,
crazy
guys.
with us. Yeah, like I was about to say. I mean, you're welcome back anytime.
absolutely,
like,
dude.
It's an open invite whenever you just want to come on and shoot the shit. Like we have a top 5 segment that we do, like top 5 horror films, top 5 films that should have been TV shows, different things like that, so that you could come back on and have a little fun. But listen, thank you so much again. Like this was an
I
absolute
appreciate
joy.
you guys even reaching out.
Of
Oh,
course.
dude, it's fantastic. Fellow 80s dude, man, and broadcast journalism, sports guy. Like, yeah, you're all in, dude. You're like, you fit right in with us, man. It's fantastic.
Good. Well, yeah, and you guys are both North Carolina, right? But you're thinking of going to New Orleans?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, I spent the majority of my life in New Orleans, so it's kind of a return for me. But yeah, so we're excited about it, though.
There is a huge filmmaking infrastructure down there in New Orleans.
There sure is, and they hit a little bump for a little bit, but they're surging back really quick, and yeah, it's
They're coming on
fantastic.
strong.
They
And
really are.
The challenge down there is like trying to find crew sometimes.
Yep. That's exactly right.
I've done my time there twice where being on location, and I think I told you, walking through the the theme park.
Yep.
Yeah.
You
Oh
get a
man.
chance, man.
Yeah.
It's, if you have a good idea for a horror film, that's it. Like,
For sure.
just go there,
For
shoot
sure.
your little short, and bring it out to LA and start showing it around town.
That's right,
Fuck
man.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I
Well,
love
listen, dude, take care. Have a fantastic rest of the time. We're going to have you back on. You sounded super excited about this next film you're working on. So when it gets there, we're going to have you back on to talk about it.
Yeah, it's Blumhouse. Like,
Yeah.
it'll be the pieces are coming together, and it's an original thing. The director's a first-time director from AFI.
Nice.
His AFI thesis is what got him sort of noticed. And
Fantastic.
the trick is his AFI thesis was in 2014. Movie will come out in 2024. Sometimes that's how long it takes to get your movie made.
Exactly. And that's what we want to talk more about too in further episodes. And we try to talk about in our industry news is like, it's not always a 6-month year process. Like sometimes it takes 10 plus years to get one film off the ground.
Yeah.
You can't microwave it.
No, you can't.
Gerard, he did 3 years on just developing M3GAN.
Yep.
When they approached him on M3GAN, just because.
Just
COVID?
because.
Oh, we're going to shoot in Canada? No, we can't shoot in Canada because we got to start over again in New Zealand. That adds another 8 months. Actors fall out.
Hell yeah.
So anytime, guys, you know how to get a hold of me.
Yes, sir.
Wishing you all the best, all right?
Appreciate
We
it, man.
appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Man, oh man, what an interview.
I love this guy from start to finish.
Seriously.
Anybody, you know my old ass self, anybody that opens the interview and says, I'm an 80s guy, yeah! But just his enthusiasm, I don't know about you, I kept looking over at you. I couldn't stop smiling the whole interview. He was so passionate. You just lit up whenever you, dude, loved it.
I mean, that's the definition of someone who is passionate about their craft.
Yeah,
And I said it in the interview, but I haven't felt that level of excitement since we went to the Academy Museum out in Los Angeles. Just the way he was describing everything. He is so infatuated with filmmaking, and that's what it's all about. That's what you need to have to be a filmmaker. So
and understanding the journey.
Yes.
I think some of the most valuable stuff he said is know who you are, know where your weaknesses are, know where your strengths are. Don't have that ego. Help other people. Don't dull the shine. All of that is that's how you succeed in this industry, man.
Oh my gosh. So damn good. So good. Thank you again, Jeff, for coming on the show.